In tournament soccer, playing on your home soil is, it's supposed to be your absolute greatest weapon.
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive advantage.
Right. You have the climate, the familiarity, and, well, the overwhelming noise of your own people. But what happens when 50,000 screaming fans suddenly transform from an advantage into, like, a 50,000-pound weight resting squarely on your shoulders?
Yeah, it creates a really fascinating psychological paradox.
Yeah.
Because the stadium's energy doesn't just evaporate, right? It mutates.
It mutates into pressure.
Exactly, into this suffocating pressure. I mean, every slight miscontrol, every pass that trails just a yard behind its intended target, you don't just feel your own frustration. You feel the collective anxious gasp of an entire nation watching you.
And that is the exact tension we are pulling apart for you on today's deep dive. We are looking incredibly closely at the thrilling and frankly utterly exhausting FIFA World Cup 2026 Group B opening match.
Such a tense game.
It really was. This was co-hosts Canada Les Rouges taking on a relentlessly disciplined Bosnia and Herzegovina side.
A completely different style of play.
Totally. So just to set the stage for you, it is June 12th, 2026, or June 13th, for those of you tracking this on Indian Standard Time. The venue is a packed Toronto stadium.
And the final score reads 1-1.
Exactly, 1-1. But we are absolutely not here to just read you a box score today.
Far from it. A box score is, well, it's sanitized. It completely strips away the fear, the tactical chess match that unfolded over those 90 grueling minutes, and, the sheer physical toll of the game.
Right, the stuff you can't see on paper.
Exactly. We need to look at the psychological warfare of that opening whistle, the defensive masterclass that neutralized Canada's biggest weapons, and what this specific draw mathematically dictates for the rest of the tournament.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand the mechanics of this 1-1 draw, you really have to transport yourself into the atmosphere of those first 25 minutes.
So it was heavy.
So heavy. The hype in Toronto was deafening. The expectations were sky high. But almost immediately, you could physically see that overarching excitement morphing into a crushing, nervous energy on the pitch. I mean, Canada just looked tight.
Yeah, we talk about heavy legs in soccer, and it usually implies physical fatigue, like they've run too much.
Right.
But here, the heavy legs were entirely neurological. When a team steps out for a World Cup opener at home, they often feel they need to play, like, the perfect match in the first 5 minutes.
Which is impossible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the Canadian central defense, which is normally so reliable, they started showing these micro-hesitations. You'd see a split-second delay in stepping up to an attacker, or a momentary glance over the shoulder that takes just a fraction too long.
And at the elite international level, hesitation isn't just a mistake, it's fatal.
Absolutely fatal. And Bosnia was primed to punish that exact hesitation.
Which brings us to the 20th minute.
Yeah.
That nervous energy actually manifested as a structural lapse in the Canadian backline. Jovo Lukic, the Bosnian forward, he capitalized on this swift counterattack.
A brilliant run.
It really was. He isolated the disjointed Canadian defense, recognized the gap instantly, and just finished with absolute ice in his veins to make it 1-0.
What's fascinating here is the historical context of host nations in opening games. When we analyze decades of tournament data, host nations rarely play a normal first game.
They're always kind of skewed, right?
Exactly. They generally fall into one of two extreme categories.
Yeah.
They either ride the emotional tsunami and thrive early, scoring in the opening sequences, or they completely buckle under the psychological burden.
Wow, so it's feast or famine.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Lukic's goal threatened to violently shove Canada into that second category. Furthermore, it handed Bosnia the exact tactical blueprint they needed to just dictate the terms of engagement for the rest of the match.
I want you to imagine throwing the biggest house party of your life. Everyone you've ever met is there. They are all watching you. The music is pumping. And 20 minutes in, you step out onto the porch and accidentally lock yourself out in the rain.
That is a terrible feeling.
It's the worst. And meanwhile, all your guests are inside staring at you through the window. That panic, that sudden freezing reality, that's exactly what that 20th minute goal felt like.
The air just left the building.
Totally. The Toronto crowd went completely eerily silent. But that 20th minute goal didn't just silence the crowd, it fundamentally broke the game wide open for Bosnia because it allowed them to completely change the geometry of the pitch.
Yeah, they immediately deployed a relentless low block, instantly.
Right.
Bosnia knew Canada's entire offensive identity is built on explosive pace. You have players like Jonathan David and, of course, the captain Alfonso Davies.
Guys who can just fly.
Exactly. If a defense pushes up and leaves 40 yards of open grass behind them, Davies will simply outrun everyone and destroy the defensive structure.
Yeah.
So Bosnia removed that option entirely.
I just took away the space.
They completely abandoned the middle third of the pitch, dropped 9 men deep into their own penalty area, and essentially dared Canada to break down a condensed human wall.
You know, people constantly complain that defensive soccer is boring to watch.
Oh, all the time.
But isn't there a really frustrating genius to what Bosnia executed here? I mean, it's not just parking the bus. I like to think of it as a shrinking room.
A shrinking room, yeah, I like that.
Because every time Canada took a step forward, the Bosnian defensive line took a collective step back. They just kept condensing the space until there was literally nowhere for Canada's sprinters to run. They neutralized the speed by removing the track.
This raises an important question about how we fundamentally view defensive tactics. We often label it as parking the bus, which sounds really passive.
Like they're just standing there doing nothing.
Right. But in reality, maintaining a low block against a team with Canada's speed is incredibly active, and it is exhausting.
It requires so much focus.
It really does. Bosnia exploited the spaces left behind by Canada's aggressive wingbacks early on to get that critical first goal, and then they just slammed the door shut. Implementing this strategy means you are voluntarily inviting relentless pressure.
You're just asking to be attacked.
Exactly. You are accepting that the opponent will have like 70% of the ball and will be raining corners and crosses into your box for an hour. The Bosnian central defenders and their goalkeeper had to withstand a massive, sustained barrage while maintaining perfect spatial discipline.
And the frustration was so palpable. You look at Alfonso Davies in that first half. I mean, he was constantly bracketed by 2, sometimes 3 Bosnian defenders the second the ball touched his boot.
They swarmed him.
Every single time. So the halftime whistle blows. Canada goes into the locker room down 1-0. The home fans are anxious. Plan A has been entirely dismantled by this defensive masterclass.
He was looking really grim.
It was. I was honestly scratching my head at halftime wondering why Canada kept trying to force the ball down the wings if Bosnia had essentially built an impenetrable fortress inside the penalty box. How do you adapt when your primary weapon is just taken away?
Well, you can't go through a meticulously organized low block. You have to stretch it until it seems tear.
Oh, I see.
And the Canadian coaching staff executed a phenomenal tactical pivot in the locker room. They didn't just tell the players to run harder, They rewired the mechanics of the approach.
Yeah.
First off, they altered their pressing triggers.
Okay, wait. I've heard that term thrown around a lot by analysts. But what does a pressing trigger actually look like for the players down on the pitch?
So instead of just chasing the ball endlessly and exhausting themselves, which is what you see amateur teams do, a trigger is a specific predetermined cue.
Like a signal to attack the ball.
Exactly. Canada stopped running blindly at the Bosnian defenders. Instead, they started waiting for a Bosnian center back to take a slightly heavy touch or for a pass to be played to a defender's weaker foot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The millisecond that specific vulnerability happened, that was the trigger. Suddenly, 3 Canadian players would collapse on that single man with violent intensity, forcing a turnover in a dangerous area before Bosnia could even reset their defensive shape.
That is incredibly smart. They also brought on fresh legs, specifically targeting the flanks, right? It seemed like the goal was to violently increase the tempo of the passing.
Absolutely. By moving the ball rapidly from the left touchline to the right touchline and back again, Canada forced the entire 9-man Bosnian bloc to physically shift side to side.
And you just can't do that forever.
Human beings cannot slide laterally in perfect synchronization for 45 straight minutes. Eventually, fatigue sets in. Someone steps a half-second late, and a gap the size of a needle opens up.
And Canada just kept hammering at that door, side to side, over and over, until the 77th minute. This is the monumental turning point of the match.
It really was the moment.
Alfonso Davies, who had been hounded, kicked, and shadowed by 3 guys all afternoon, finds the ball on the left wing. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
In sports, we often talk about the concept of gravity. Think about a generational superstar basketball player, right? They draw double teams just by standing quietly in the corner of the court.
Just their presence is enough.
Exactly. They possess so much gravitational pull that their mere presence secretly benefits the rest of the team by leaving a teammate completely unmarked.
And Davies completely weaponized his gravity in that 77th minute. He didn't even need to beat the three defenders. He just used his explosive pace to threaten a drive toward the end line.
Just a little burst of speed.
But that pure burst of speed terrified the Bosnian defense. It dragged their collective focus and their physical bodies toward him. By pulling that defensive mass to the left, he created this vacuum of space in the center of the penalty area.
So he didn't even shoot.
No, he didn't shoot. He slipped a precise surgical cross right into that newly created pocket.
And waiting in that exact pocket of space was Cyle Lauren, Canada's all-time leading goal scorer.
What a finish.
Right. Lauren executes a brilliant piece of positioning. He finds the one soft spot in that exhausted Bosnian defense and delivers a clinical, unstoppable finish. 1-1. The roof practically blew off Toronto Stadium.
The noise was unbelievable.
It was deafening. The atmosphere flipped from this state of nervous dread to absolute, unbridled euphoria in a fraction of a second.
The tactical patience required to wait 77 minutes for that single opening is just staggering to me. But, we also have to highlight the invisible bruising work Lauren did before that goal.
Oh, absolutely. He took a beating.
He was a massive, immovable physical presence throughout the entire second half. His hold-up play, where he receives the ball with his back to the goal and physically wrestles with the Bosnian center backs, it slowly ground them down.
It's exhausting for a defender to deal with that.
Totally. By the time that cross came in, those defenders were carrying the physical toll of wrestling a heavyweight striker for over half an hour. Their legs were just gone.
It's the classic strategy of a boxer, right? Viciously working the opponent's body for 10 rounds before finally going for the knockout blow to the head in the 11th.
That's a perfect analogy.
And that equalizer, it completely shattered the structural discipline of the game. It launched us into a chaotic, breathless final 15 minutes. It was pure end-to-end action.
Both teams just abandoned their rigid shapes.
Yeah, desperately pushing for a winner. But elite, desperate defending on both ends meant the final whistle locked the score at 1-1.
That chaotic final 15 minutes truly embodied the desperation of tournament soccer. But, once the referee blows that final whistle, the emotion evaporates, and we are left staring at the cold, unforgiving math of the group stage.
Oh, man, the math. I want you to put yourself in the boots of those Canadian players walking down the tunnel. You've just survived a near-death experience on national television in front of your home fans.
Yeah.
Do you feel a profound sense of relief that you salvaged a point, or are you terrified because your margin for error for the rest of the tournament has just evaporated to zero?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, tournament soccer is fundamentally about survival and momentum management. The World Cup group stage is only 3 matches long.
It goes by so fast.
It is notoriously cruel. If Canada had dropped all 3 points at home in the opener, the psychological and mathematical damage would have been catastrophic.
You almost never come back from that.
Recovering from a 0-point opening match requires a miracle. So securing that 1 point absolutely rescues them from the abyss. It keeps Group B wide open, but it acts as a massive pressure cooker for the remaining fixtures.
Well, let's map out that pressure cooker because Canada's roadmap now shifts dramatically. The circus packs up and heads to the West Coast. The next 2 games are scheduled at BC Place in Vancouver, and the stakes could literally not be higher.
They really couldn't.
First up, June 18th local time or June 19th, IST Canada faces Qatar.
That is a non-negotiable must-win match. If you emerge from Game 1 with a single point, you absolutely must secure all 3 points in Game 2 against a team like Qatar.
You can't afford a draw there.
No, you need to bank those points because of what looms in the final fixture.
Right. The final match is against Switzerland on June 24th, and the Swiss are a seasoned European heavyweight.
That match in Vancouver is already shaping up to be the definitive group-deciding fixture. It will likely dictate who tops Group B or who sneaks into the knockout rounds.
And you don't want to go into that desperate.
Exactly. You do not want to walk onto the pitch against a tactically shrewd Swiss team desperate for a win just to keep your tournament alive. You want to go into that match playing for favorable knockout positioning.
That makes sense.
Therefore, the Qatar game transforms into an execution test. The draw against Bosnia was the survival test. Qatar is where Canada must prove their lethal edge.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at a simple 1-1 draw on a piece of paper, a scoreline that looks, perfectly balanced.
Very deceiving.
Extremely deceiving. Because when you look closer, you see an incredible, exhausting journey. You see a home nation battling the crushing nervous disaster of a 20th minute deficit.
Right.
You witness a brilliantly executed, suffocating tactical low block by Bosnia that forced Canada to completely rewire their offensive mechanics on the fly.
And they did it.
They did. You see the agonizing patience required to break down that wall, the gravitational pull of superstar players, and the absolute euphoria of a 77th minute equalizer from a striker who spent 30 minutes just physically battering the defense.
Which is so much more than a number.
Exactly. Understanding these nuances, the psychological weight, the tactical chess moves, the unseen physical tolls, is what makes watching the rest of this World Cup so much more rewarding than just checking the scores on your phone.
It absolutely elevates the experience. And, it leaves you with a lingering, provocative question to ponder as this Canadian squad flies to Vancouver.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We discussed the profound relief of rescuing a single point. But consider the psychological forging process of this match.
Okay.
Does surviving a terrifying near catastrophe on opening day actually forge a stronger, more battle-tested tournament mentality than coasting to a flawless, easy 3-0 victory?
Oh, wow.
Right. When your game plan shatters, when the crowd falls silent, and you have to systematically claw your way back from the brink of disaster without panicking. Perhaps Canada didn't just win a single point on the board. Perhaps they won the vital psychological armor they're going to desperately need when the knockout stages begin.
That is a phenomenal lens to view this through. Sometimes the agonizing, near-fatal lessons are the exact ones that keep you alive when the stakes get even higher.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As always, keep asking questions, keep looking beneath the surface of the headlines, and remember, if you ever lock yourself out of your own house party, just stay patient, find the structural weakness in the defensive block, and you might just find a way back in. We'll catch you next time.